This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Hello and welcome to News Extra right here on your Beyond the News station, Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. I'm Stephen Imediegu. On News Extra today, the focus is on a planned protest against genetically modified organisms in Nigeria. And this is a protest that is being backed by the Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa (CAPA). And they are protesting genetically modified organisms. Now, genetically modified organisms are produced using scientific methods that include recombinant DNA technology and reproductive cloning with a view towards eliminating undesirable traits in animals or food at a molecular level. Now, Nigeria in January of this year declared genetically modified organisms as safe, with the director of the NBMA, that's the National Biosafety Management Agency, Dr. Agnes Asagbara, saying that the current scientific consensus means that the agency supports the statement that genetically modified foods have been approved for consumption in Nigeria. But to find out exactly why there is a question over its safety, we are now joined by Gideon Adeyemi, the Programs Officer at the Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa (CAPA). Mr. Adeyemi, thank you so much for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. To jump right into this, what exactly is the argument against genetically modified organisms?
Well, the argument is basically in threefold. It's against the food sovereignty. GMOs influence our food sovereignty and security negatively. It's also about environmental and biodiversity, sustainability, and also it's about our health. Essentially, it's about our life. When we rely so much on GMOs as we do presently, there is very significant impact on the environment. It has been confirmed that with increasing use of GMOs, we have to rely on pesticides and herbicides, which lead to biodiversity loss. It's also established, based on research, that use of GMOs, consumption of crops produced through GMOs lead to very significant impact, very negative significant impact on health. Cases of certain diseases that have been connected to increasing consumption of crops are related to GMOs. And of course, when we use GMOs, it means that farmers have to go back to the companies that produce these seeds to buy every year, which means that corporations now have to control our seedlings, our seeds. Corporations now have to control our food system essentially. So it is those three arguments about food sovereignty, it's about health, about environmental sustainability, and we've had cases across the globe where countries have had to say, no, we're going back on this. We cannot continue to think that there is a silver bullet, there is a faster way, or to look for a quick way out of the issues rather than face them head on. We have to fix the problem that we have concretely. Agroecology is the path forward. Regenerative agriculture is the path forward. But governments are usually looking for quick fixes, and that is what corporations think that they bring with GMOs. But we know that these GMOs have very terrible environmental, health, and other impacts on health. So these are the arguments.
Let me ask you this. Nigeria is already approved for crops. I believe maize, cowpea, cotton, and soybeans. They already received approval. This was, I think, in April this year, if not even earlier. So we already have GMO crops that are commercialized here in the country. Do you think that this protest may be too little, too late?
I do not think so. I think that with increasing pressure on the Nigerian government, we can get them to make amends for what's happening. The National Biosafety Management Agency has its regulations about how safety of foods should be assessed. We feel that the approvals have been done without due regard for the procedures established in the NBMA Act, the testing of food safety. So I think that they will continue to put pressure on the government we can get them to make the relevant policies, to invest rightly in agroecology, to ensure that regenerative agricultural practices becomes the norm rather than the very rare case in our situation. So I feel that if we continue to mount pressure where necessary, we can get them to make the right decisions. We can get them to reverse the already approved crops. We've seen cases in countries in South Africa, in Burkina Faso, in Mexico, where we've had this kind of approvals, and after a while, the devastating impact on the environment and health was realized, that courts have had to reverse such approvals. So I believe that if we continue to mount pressure here too, of course, we can get that kind of reversals, and we can even stop the continued approval of such other GMOs that has a very significant.
This is not a defense for the GMO production companies, but there has been some argument that governments would be less critical if the GMOs were being produced by them and they were the ones controlling it. And then in the case of countries like Nigeria, who are on the receiving end, that we would be less critical if these were Nigerian companies as opposed to foreign companies that would then hold the copyright, pardon me, there's a word for it, but essentially that they would hold the technology and just continue to give us the patent, that they would hold the technology and continue to simply sell the product to us. Do you agree with this argument?
Well, I think that whether the GMOs are manufactured by local companies or foreign ones, the fact is that the health impacts remain. It does not stop them being, leading to the diseases that have been identified to be associated with GMOs. Whether they are produced here or outside does not stop the environmental impact, the diversity loss that results from happening. So the solution is not to get local companies producing these GMOs, or to ban GMOs outrightly. The point is that the environmental cost, the health cost, is just too high, and we cannot allow corporations to control our food system. Whether they are local corporations, whether they are foreign corporations, the control of our food system has to be in the hands of people, of local farmers, of indigenous people. Before GMOs, people have been planting, and let me tell you, the argument that GMOs lead to increased yield and all of that, and they are not correct. That is true, because oftentimes these things are approved without long-term tests, and we have had cases, even in Nigeria here, we had the National Cotton Association has said, look, after the second year, after planting the genetically modified and cotton, the yield reduced. So the arguments are very non-factual, and we just have to maintain that whether they are locally produced, whether they are foreign produced, GMOs are not right for us. We have to put the control of our food system in the hands of local farmers. We have to ensure that we protect our environment. Whatever kind of food production system that leads to the contamination of our water and leads to the contamination of our soil, and it's not right for us. And 2-3 days ago, during the World Soil Day, I was saying that soil is essentially our life support system. So something that leads to the contamination of our soil is not right, and it does not matter whether it is produced locally or internationally. We must stop corporations from taking over our food system. We must ensure that our food system is controlled by local farmers, by indigenous people, by the people, not by corporations. And whether local or international, we must not hand over our food system to corporations.
Well, Mr. Adeyemi, thank you so much for speaking with us on News Extra today. Gideon Adeyemi is the Programs Officer at Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa. He joined us to speak this morning on a planned protest against the genetically modified organisms, which, as we have told you in this conversation, has been declared safe for consumption in Nigeria, with the country going as far as actually listing 4 different food items that the GMOs will be responsible for. Well, this is still Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. We urge you to stay tuned to your Beyond the News station. In a few short moments, we'll be turning to the front pages of our dailies on the News Review. Do stay with us.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.